Thank you. Welcome, councillors, to the 860 Transport and Infrastructure Committee meeting. We have most of our members here of the committee. We will have an apology shortly, but we'll get to that shortly. But welcome Councillor Curtis and Councillor Martin to today's meeting. First of all, attendance and apologies. I do have an apology for Councillor Hammel, who's currently attending a national property conference. So can I get a mover for apologies? Councillor Tozer, second to Councillor Marshall. All in favour? Carry. Leave of absence, nil. Confirmation of minutes. The previous minutes held on the 9th of September 2025. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Tozer, second to Councillor Marshall. Any corrections or changes? All in favour? Carry. We're going well. Any conflict of interest for today's meeting? Nil. Thank you. So we've currently got 5 items, 1 enclosed. We've got 2 currently starred. Would anyone like to unstar or star any of the items? No. So we'll move to the 2 starred items, which is Transport Infrastructure Committee Forward Planning and the petition response. So can I have a mover for 5.1 and 6.1? Councillor Gates, second to Councillor Young. All in favour? Carry. Fantastic. Now we move to the 2024-25 State of the Beaches report, Northern Beaches Protection Project update. So we've got Matt Moore that will be giving us a presentation. So welcome, Matt.
That's plugged in. Good afternoon, Chair and Councillors. Thank you for having me today while I present the update on the state of the beaches and coastal planning. Before I start today, I need to make you aware of a minor change to the slides. So on slide 4, I've updated the figure to make it easier to read. You'll see in your packet was a colourful rainbow figure, and I've just put it in grayscale to highlight the differences to make it easier for legibility. So today I would like to talk to you about the 2024-25 Financial Year State of the Beaches report, the overview and impacts of ex-Tropical Cyclone Alfred on the state of our beaches. I'd also like to provide you with an update on the beach restoration program, which was launched in response to Tropical Cyclone Alfred, and I'd also like to provide an update on the Northern Beaches project. So not a lot to get through, and we do have a few hours, so let's get started. So, how are our state of the beaches doing? Well, as you can see here, the impacts of ex-Tropical Cyclone Alfred were far-reaching and have impacted almost every metric that we measure for our state of the beaches, except for clean water. It's important to note that this is just for the financial year June to June and doesn't account for any additional works or recovery that we have seen since that time. But as you can see for our beach protection measures, erosion protection, beach amenity and dune amenity, we see a negative change of between 33 and 42% compared to last year. While significant, this represents 3 things. The first being that in most of the areas in red on the map, the beaches and dunes did what they were supposed to do. They absorbed the impact of the initial storm and ongoing periods of unfavourable bad weather, preventing further landward erosion, asset loss, and impacting our last line of defence seawall network. The second being that these locations are now very vulnerable to follow-up events. Sorry, I lost my page there. So they've done what they need to do, but we need to continue to ensure that we keep investing in these areas to accelerate our beach recovery and minimise impacts over our next summer storm season. The third thing that this graph shows is that the beaches that didn't have adequate erosion protection before Tropical Cyclone Alfred hit, say for example in our northern beaches, the city relied heavily on our certified seawall network. This prevented further land loss and protected our significant public and private assets in the area, and in some instances our seawalls were exposed for almost 2 months, preventing further loss of erosion and further land being taken by the storm. In terms of our beach facilities measure, this represents the loss of beach access infrastructure such as stairs, platforms, showers, mainly in our northern beaches. So that's about a 10% loss Our beach economy metric, which measures visitation and spend in adjacent beach precincts, only noted a 7% decrease, which is a great result considering the negative media coverage the coast received immediately following the storms. Overall, where we had locations that had either our required beach volumes in place, natural or constructed coastal defence structures such as Palm Beach Artificial Reef, Kirra Big Groin, or our natural headlands, we saw a significantly positive outcome in terms of impact and recovery timeframes, in comparison to areas where we did not have these things in place. I'll discuss the overall impacts and our beach restoration program in the coming slides. No. There we go. Thank you. So, why has the impact on our beaches been so great? Well, in terms of what we've been experiencing, analysis over the previous 12 months of wave data shows that we have experienced the second highest wave energies on record for the past 33 years. Having a look at the graph, you can see a very large spike in energy up around March, which was also the highest spike on record. So the last 12 months is that blue line that I've pasted on that graph, and you can see that we're travelling near the top following Tropical Cyclone Alfred. We then also have another spike in August, which represents our highest wave energy August on record, and we're near almost the top. So that puts us in the second position of wave energy since records began. It also puts us in the number one highest energy wave period in the last 6 months. So the 6 months following Tropical Cyclone Alfred, we just kept getting hit again and again and again, impacting our recovery efforts, both natural and accelerated.
Matt, I've got a question, Councillor Tozer.
Before you move on, Matt, can you just help me understand how we define wave energy? Like, what is, like, to simplify that for someone who doesn't have any beach in their division?
Yep, that's through the chair. So this is measured from our offshore wave buoys, which have been in place for over 30 years now off the coast, and it measures the wave heights that go up and down and compares it across all the years that we have data for. So it's an accumulation of wave heights and wave energy measured through this time in joules.
So is it height of wave and depth of wave, or is it how much up and down it is?
It's both.
So both of those things?
Yeah, it's the combined wave energy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yes, so it's been a pretty significant year for the Gold Coast in terms of what we've experienced. So not only have we had unprecedented wave energies, but 2025 has also seen us in a peak lunar maximum tidal cycle, meaning our high tides are the highest they'll be for almost 18 years. These two factors have combined and slowed natural recovery and mechanically assisted recovery across the coast.
So can I ask about that? So when you say lunar energy, you mean the moon is closer to us than it has been in the previous 18 years, so the gravitational pull is greater?
Yes, so through the chair, it just means our tides are higher. So we typically have about a 1.6 to 1.8 high tide maximum, and we're sitting above 2 metres in our high tides this year. So that means we have an extra 20 centimetres of water on top of where we'd normally have, which puts that water level up the beach further than it would be normally. So if we combine that with high energy waves on top, it just has the opportunity to take more sand than it would otherwise. So
that's because of the moon?
That's because of the moon, yes, correct.
So, Matt, this would have been predicted anyway for our beaches moving forward. There normally is a cyclone in between that's caused the challenges.
Yeah, through the chair, yes. So we are aware of the tidal cycle and we analyse that and are aware of all these changes. But what we don't predict is that when you're going to get hit by an ex-tropical cyclone or tropical cyclone.
Wow.
So now that we've had the 12-month look, if we zoom in to what we experienced exactly in March, we can look at just how bad it was and how quickly we actually responded. So in terms of the initial impact by ex-tropical cyclone Alfred, we experienced waves up to 12.3 metres in height, and approximately 4 million metres cubed of sand was displaced offshore during the event. Despite this, we managed to reopen 80% of beaches with full lifeguard patrols within 10 days of the cyclone crossing, representing a mammoth cleanup, recovery effort and a logistical task. However, that was only the initial response to the storm event, and we have a much larger recovery program in place to ensure that we can get our state of the beaches back on track. This brings us to the beach restoration program, which we launched as soon as Tropical Cyclone Alfred hit. Some key facts for the program. Works are split into 3 phases, which I'll expand on over the next few slides. We have been combining sand renourishment techniques to increase effectiveness and improve resilience across our beaches. When we wrote this report in early September, there had been 26 weeks since Tropical Cyclone Alfred hit, and we had only 6 weeks of consecutive calm conditions that are conducive to natural recovery. So that's only 23% of the time the beaches are accreting rather than receding. March and August, as I said earlier, were the highest wave heights and energy since records began in 1987, and we have some really good evidence about the benefits of combining recovery operations, such as our backpassing and our dredging, which I'll touch on in a bit.
So, Matt, just moving forward, what does that high tide, king tide prediction look like moving forward with this recovery?
Through the chair, so the impacts of the tides have been really evident. We have been proactively every month before the high tide been placing additional sand, protecting assets in the proactive sense. Now, next year, we're going to see a similar number of high tides throughout 2026, not quite as many, but very close to, and then it will drop off back down that lunar cycle, and we'll get, in 9 years, we'll get then a low period where that's really low. So we're obviously taking that into consideration whenever we do any of our works. It's high on our radar. We have assets that we know are at risk when we're getting these high tides, and we know if there's a storm coming, we'll be doing different techniques such as perhaps proactive removal or proactive sand placement to ensure that they're safe.
What's the difference in the range of the high tides over that 9 or 18-year period, please?
Through the chair, I don't have the exact numbers with me, but I can take that on notice and let you know.
Just a measurement would be good. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. So we have 3 phases of work for the beaches restoration program, and I'll provide a brief overview of the 3 phases on this slide and then expand on each of the phases in the following slides. Works on Phase 1, safe and accessible, were started immediately following the crossing of the cyclone. This involved debris clearing, water quality monitoring, scarp reduction, accessway reinstatement, asset inspections, closures, repairs and removal, as well as media and communications and reinstatement of our lifeguard patrols. For Phase 2, beach restoration, we're focusing here on returning the beaches to pre-Cyclone Alfred conditions. For Phase 3, long-term coastal resilience, the aim is to ensure we have a resilient coastline that can withstand and cater for future storm events. A key initiative we are focusing on for this is the Northern Beaches project, which I'll provide an update on later in the presentation. So Phase 1, safe and accessible. At the time of writing this report, Phase 1 was approximately 80% complete. This is now around 95% complete as we have reopened several accessways, and calmer weather over the past month has allowed for some additional beach recovery. So efforts focus now in our northern beaches to reinstate accessways for Christmas, including 7 sets of stairs around Main Beach and Narrow Neck. Works over the past 6 months in this phase have included the Surfers Paradise hardstand emergency protection works, sand scraping and buffering assets with sand across the coast, and ensuring proactive sand placements before swell events. And as you can see on the pictures here, we can see the sand scraping at Burleigh, for example, how we reprofile the beach to dissipate the wave energy as sand scarping exacerbates erosion. For Phase 2, we've supplied almost 1.2 million cubic metres of sand now at Surfers Paradise and Main Beach through our offshore dredging program, and just over 50,000 metres cubed of sand via our backpassing pipeline to Main Beach. You can see the evidence of the effectiveness of this operation in the photos on the left-hand side, where we have the top photo showing late April at low tide. As you can see there, in the high tide, the waves would be hitting that seawall, and you'd have no dry beach to walk on. Following that, in the middle of July, after dredging has started and backpassing has started, you can see the impacts that that's had on that same section of Hollandale Park, with beach available to use by the public. For Phase 3, we have awarded works to a consultant to prepare the strategic business case for the Northern Beaches project.
Councillor Tozer, yes?
So on page 92 of the report, which relates to beach restoration, there's some commentary about in the table that talks about the different locations and the amount of time. Is there a section in your slide later or that will talk about the accelerated recovery versus natural recovery. If you're going to get to it later, I'll just wait till the slide talks about it. But if
Was it this one? Through the chair, yes, I'll get to that table.
it's later on,
Yeah, it's later on. It's
Great,
2 slides
awesome.
away.
I'll save my question for then.
Councillor Gates.
Thanks, Chair. I have a question too, and tell me if that comes later. But on page 100, under timing about the Northern Beaches Protection Project, it says that the next phase was, a concept brief was approved or endorsed by ELT. Has that come to council yet?
Through the chair, I don't believe that has come to council. We're in phase 2 of the strategic business case, and I'll talk to that later in the slides.
Okay, I'll wait for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So back to phase 2, we know that well-vegetated dunes significantly reduce the impacts of storms and were integral in protecting our beaches, not only during ex-tropical cyclone Alfred, but the follow-up events during 2025. Having now demonstrated this protective function, the State of the Beaches report now reflects only 14% of the city's dune network as being on track. Due to this, we are accelerating the recovery of our extremely important second line of defence, our dune network, through the Dune Shield program, which was launched last month. This project, joint funded by the state government through QCoast 2100, has had 6 sites hand fertilised last week at Currumbin, Palm Beach South, Tallabudgera, Surfers Paradise, Narranac and Main Beach. A second round of fertilising will be done in early 2026. The results of the trials will inform future revegetation and fertilising techniques and will be rolled out across the whole of coast to boost our dune recovery.
Matt, just a question on that. With the northern beaches, and obviously we've got a lot of scarping, a lot of sand loss, there's obviously some vegetation that needs to be planted out the front there. And I'm aware of some developers that need to complete theirs. How do we look at managing that for the short to medium term?
Through the chair, so now that we're approaching a recovery period, we can now focus on planning to re-vegetate and rebuild our dunes. Dune Shield is the first step in that. We'll be trialling techniques of revegetation and fertilising the dunes to work out which techniques boost and grow the dunes quicker, and we'll be using that to roll it out across the coast. So this is a pilot project. Once this is completed early next year, we'll be able to plan then the next dune. So obviously the next one we want to do is that Hollandale Park dune right there, as we're putting the sand there for the sand back pass, and we're having a program of works to accelerate the recovery. So following the second round of fertilising in 2026, we'll begin to roll this out across the coastline. In terms of our phase 2 recovery targets, following some studies we performed of previous large storm events such as ex-tropical cyclone Oswald in 2013 and ex-tropical cyclone Omar in 2009, we estimated a recovery and vulnerability window of between 1 to 4 years on the coast, depending on location. In Palm Beach, for example, we expect to see recovery within 1 to 2 years. However, in our northern beaches, that might be 3 to 4 years away. In order to reduce this vulnerability, we have been accelerating the natural recovery of our northern beaches through sand re-nourishment via dredging and backpassing. Through this, we estimate we can close that gap down to 9 to 12 months. Our overall target through the dredging is a 100-metre wide beach by winter 2026 in Main Beach, which represents a beach volume index sufficient to withstand a 1 in 50-year storm event. This is modelled on the median conditions that we've experienced in the past 30 years. Were there any questions on this slide?
Okay. Matty, through the chair, I thought I'd add that this is to get the northern beaches back to the pre-cyclone Alfred state, which was not enough to withstand a 1 in 50-year storm event. Hence why it retreated right back to the seawall. What we're actually saying in the report, if you look into on page 92, is that without any assistance or any work that the city's doing at all, it would likely never recover back to a position where it has our nominal beach width volume. We would never get back to a 1 in 50-year event, enough sand for it to cop that. So without our efforts, we will never get there. Okay, so
So on the table that is depicted here in the report on page 92, there's some little notes underneath it. Note number 1 says no beach recovery acceleration works are planned for Currumbin or Palm Beach, and I'm assuming that's because of the opposite that you've just said. As a result of the work that's been done and the protections that were down there, those are actually kind of almost naturally coming back to standard. Am I reading that kind of nominally correctly?
Through the chair, that is correct, and obviously our efforts are focused up the northern end where that is the opposite to be true. Yes.
And note number 2 says the beach volumes in Narranac prior to ex-tropical cyclone Alfred were not sufficient to withstand a 1 in 50-year ARI storm event, but the recovery indicated only indicates when it will return to pre-event conditions. For Narranac to achieve a sand volume to withstand a 1 in 50 storm event, it would likely take more than 8 years and may never naturally replenish it. That's kind of what you were just saying.
Yes.
So my question is, what is the impact on this to delivering like some sort of A-line or seaway, like seawall solution, and how does that impact potentially the delivery of the ocean way that we're trying to get up that way? Because I know we've talked about it not being the ocean way not being sacrificial, and
So through the chair, that is the answer is the Northern Beaches Protection Project, and we'll get into that.
Okay, so the solution to that
is
the
actually
way we deliver the ocean way in a way that is not sacrificial.
We will not be delivering the ocean way through the main beach section until the Northern Beaches Protection Project is designed in part.
And that's later in this presentation.
Yes.
Great.
So this is restoring to where we were prior to the cyclone. The additional body work has to now consider what the improvements are moving forward. When you've got here 9 to 12 months...
I don't know yet. We're about to find out. Sorry, Councillor Gates was asking a question at the same time as you were talking, and I stupidly listened to her instead of you, mate. I'm sorry. I should have listened to the chair, and I was listening to Councillor Gates. Sorry. Please forgive me.
Yep, that's right. 9 to 12 months is based on our prediction of weather conditions moving forward and the interventions that we're doing now with the 3 levels at the moment until we...
Through the chair, that is correct. Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Gates had a question.
Councillor Gates, my apologies.
But it was whether the project is considering a groin or an artificial reef. Is that what we're looking at?
Through the chair, we'll get
We're
to...
getting there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, there's nowhere else to do.
Continue, Matt.
Thank you. No comment. So how does the accelerated recovery look? The next few slides are some pictures and graphs showing just how clearly the sand renourishment is working in our northern beaches. So we have a number of ways to measure the effectiveness of this. We've got aerial photography, we've got surveys, land and ocean, we have LiDAR, we have drones, we have a whole number of different ways to measure this. This first shot is a photo taken in mid-July on low tide showing the impacts of where we have been dredging, which is the lower end of the photo, versus where we haven't been dredging, that natural recovery towards the spit. So you can see there quite a significant improvement in beach widths. The second photo, this is taken from our coastal monitoring cameras, showing the immediate impact that the rainbowing had on Main Beach, widening the beach dramatically compared to the beach further north, allowing our lifeguards to begin patrolling again immediately once they were able to access this.
Councillor Tozer.
So that camera, is that on a high-rise in Burleigh or something? Where is that camera?
Through the chair, that camera's on a high-rise in Surfers Paradise.
Okay, looking north and just keeping track of it.
Yes, that is correct.
That's awesome. Yep. Yeah. That's cool. I was just interested where the camera was. Thank you.
So as part of the coastal monitoring network, I think we have about 40 cameras along the coast aiming at every single beach. So we have got coverage, we've got time lapses, we've got beach width measurements for the last 33 years using these cameras.
Awesome.
So this third photo shows the impacts of combining our sand renourishment operations. This is sand from our back pass system on the left-hand side arrow pointing up to the upper beach. whilst the dredge rebuilds the lower beach. This creates a resilient system with the sand in the lower beach preventing the erosion of the sand in the upper beach.
And rainbowing is the dredge thing that... Okay.
Through the chair, yes, spraying it off the bow of the dredge boat.
Councillor Young, you got a question?
Thanks, Chair. I think it was in this section on the screen that we installed a new seawall protection maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Is that right?
Through the chair, yes. So that's Hollandale Park. So right where you can see the Surface Paradise Sand backpass system, that's all new seawall from the private property on the left all the way through past the surf club there. So as you can see, that was there for exposed maybe 6 to 8 weeks, doing its job preventing further erosion in this area.
The main beach tourist park underneath the word operations?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Right.
So in terms of beach widths and volume changes, you can see here that up into July, we had beach width changes of up to 70 metres in Main Beach, where we have been dredging. That's the bottom section of the table. And the growth in our beach volumes as well to help absorb the impacts of our storms. The upper portion of this table shows the area just north of Main Beach, where we haven't added any additional sand to the system, resulting in beach width changes of between 5 metres gain and a recession of 5 metres. This highlights the difference in what good the dredge can do when we're actively managing the beach. The beach volume index that we're targeting in this table here, if you can see the numbers, is a beach volume index of 1. That indicates a 1 in 50 year storm event protection mechanism. And lastly, we have here 2 beach profile graphs taken approximately 500 metres apart, one where we are dredging on the left-hand side at Main Beach, and one on the right, further north, where no dredging works have taken place. You can see the downwards beach width and volume recession trend on both graphs till June. That's following that top line downwards, followed by a rapid uptick in July, where we've been dredging on the left-hand side graph, followed by continual recession and decline on the right. This shows the very real impact that the acceleration works are having on our beach recovery.
What are the 3 graphs showing that's different? Please.
So the graphs below that are our wave energy and our significant wave heights above 2 metres. So where that line in the middle graph is in the red, it represents well above average conditions. So as you can see in August there, it tops out at the very top. So that's our number 1. And it falls through in June and July, right in the median sort of conditions, as March being close to the top, and then April being also close to the top. You can see our median wave conditions above 2 metres. We're also sitting at the top of those graphs. So that indicates a recessive wave. So that is something that's taking sand away rather than putting sand back onto the beach. So wherever those lines are in red, it's not good conditions for beach recovery.
Thank you.
Finally, what we've all been waiting for, our Northern Beaches project. Last year, I brought a report to committee about our northern beaches being the most at-risk beaches in the city. We've now seen this vulnerability firsthand by witnessing the short and medium-term impacts that ex-tropical cyclone Alfred has had on this area of the coast. The Northern Beaches project is a major project focusing on protecting this area in the long term, building permanent resilience in this system so that we can continue to have healthy and enjoyable beaches for decades to come. The Northern Beaches project will include detailed studies, expert advice and input from the community to help shape the future of this important area. In terms of progress to date, we have progressed through Gateway 1 of the city's P3M framework, with our Gate 2 strategic business case now underway. This phase includes coastal modelling, engineering, options assessments, risk assessments, and community engagement. The preferred protection solution for the northern beaches will be determined in this design phase and presented to ELT for endorsement in December 2026. Following endorsement of the chosen design, additional modelling and analysis will inform the detailed, with construction-ready solution around FY 2028-2029. And I'll leave it there for questions.
Councillor Young.
Was there much damage to the existing offshore reef protection systems, the bags and so forth?
Through the chair, we didn't measure any damage to the Narrowneck Reef, so that wasn't damaged during the storm, no.
So no shifting of the big bags or anything like that?
No, not that we could see. We've also done a survey on the Palm Beach artificial reef as well, which showed no damage. But we did find spears and nets in it, so we'll be going to clear those out in the next few months.
Thank you.
Can I get an update of the back pass and the status of it? I know there's more than one outlet, and what is the actual condition of that back pass at the moment? And obviously the challenges of the actual pump system working at the Seaway.
Yeah, through the chair, so we've had many challenges this year with the sand bypassing and backpassing campaigns due to the debris from Tropical Cyclone Alfred. So when that storm ripped through, it knocked down a lot of trees. It was a lot of flooding that came down the waterways. All this debris made its way to the north end of the coast and was trapped in the Seaway due to that groin. So we are still now in October getting debris out of those sand suction cones. So that has been, when we first started that backpass campaign, we were accelerating, things were going really well, but then once we got through that first lobe of sand and got to the debris, we've just faced delay after delay. So we're essentially down to backpassing once or twice a week, then they spend the other 5 days clearing the debris. The good thing about the system is that it wasn't damaged. So our pipelines weren't damaged. The only thing that was exposed during the cyclone was the temporary pipeline that was buried under the sand along Main Beach. All of those pipes were inspected and they're serviceable. They're fit for use again. So the long term for that would be to either deep bury those pipes further in where they would never be touched by a storm, or to do a different alignment of that of that pipeline.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Marshall.
Probably not so much a comment, probably not so much a question, but a comment. I wonder if we could just go back in our notes. I think it's on page. It'll be on the performance ones where we're showing Main Beach. If we go back a little bit, the one I think before this one. Yeah. So I guess just for the people, anyone that is watching. The biggest question we get asked is, what's the barge doing? Everyone sees it out. And I think this is the best example. There's also on the Gold Coast City Council, I think it's maybe the Instagram page, there's a time-lapse camera taken from here, which really demonstrates, I think, when you look at where there isn't any of the barge activity down to where there is. So I guess, congratulations. That's fantastic. And I think that slide that showed only 6 months worth of effort or work because the calm conditions got us 70 metres. I think you're after 100 to 150. So I'm more probably drawing attention to it to the people at home, if they are watching or people want to write an article about it, that's a really good image to show how successful the program's been.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we understand that it's only been how many months since the cyclone? 8, 10? But we had 3
7
programs going. You had the back pass, we had we call it the rainbow boat, and we also had the movement of sand from Hickman Street that moves it around. So it's been a program that's been monitored regularly. Obviously the challenges of the weather has been our biggest challenge, but if we hadn't have done that work early, these weather events that we've had since the cyclone would have caused even more challenges. So that work has really been strong in protecting the coastline in the short term. It's now a matter of actually really ensuring that those areas are improved. So that is a really good insight considering we've had those challenges. Councillor Young, and then I'll come back to Councillor Tozer.
So with the activity of the cyclone and the wind pushing the sand presumably north, did it keep moving north through the Seaway, or is it moving out into the ocean?
Through the chair, both. So the sand moved offshore about 400 to 600 metres, depending on where you look on the coast.
Right.
So some of that sand did bypass the Seaway and is now sitting off South Stradbroke Island, making its way slowly back on shore. Some of it did end up in the Seaway. Some of it ended up, in Currumbin Creek, Tallabudgera Creek, Tweed River entrance. Sand ended up there. We've been watching the offshore bar form during that storm come back. It's about 50 metres a month. So we expect in the next, hopefully, 4 to 6 months, that bar is now getting very close to shore to help sort of rebuild that coastline even more.
Wow. Thank you.
Councillor Tozer.
So my question actually comes back to the last slide that you showed us, which was the timeline for the Northern Beaches restoration project. And, you know, we've previously had a bit of an aspiration to get the Oceanway kind of complete before the Olympics, and I wondered how this interfaces with that aspiration and whether that's something that we need to reconsider as part of what we've discovered devising this Northern Beaches plan.
Through the chair, we're anticipating construction to commence and be completed on the Northern Beaches project pre the games.
So the Northern Beaches project actually necessarily includes
It would facilitate. Yes, we would
incorporate
combine
them together.
Yep.
So if we're going to do some sort of Seawall or A-liney type thing, we'd incorporate a pathway that extends the Oceanway as part of that.
Through the chair, I'll put it another way. Without the control structures or solutions that we identified, that we can't. It's not feasible to put an Oceanway either sacrificial or not sacrificial in through that section, simply because we don't have the current beach volumes, and what as we pointed out before, ever have the desired beach volumes, even to build up a dune. So it really requires some sort of intervention in order for us to do that. But once that's in, the sand will not leave. It will stay.
So the back pass was always part of that prior to Cyclone, to improve those northern beaches to hopefully deliver an continuation of the Oceanway. It was only completed 12 months ago, so it's gone from improving the northern beaches to recovery, which is, if we hadn't had in place, we wouldn't have had that resource. And that's why that additional northern beaches improvements was always there. It's something that we have been discussing in the last 3-4 years. What we're saying now is, because of the cyclone, it's indicate that we need to really accelerate that program to, one, protect the northern beaches, but then also build some additional infrastructure that we'd like to see.
And I can just add on the back of that the surface backpass system is one part of the solution, but we can't always just rely on that. We can see in the last 2 months alone of how non-operational it has been, so we can't always be certain that we can rely on it moving forward.
This question might be to Michael, but I'm interested in some of our, I call them make-safe fences that are on the foreshore along the coastline, that in some cases seem to be falling over and not the best visual amenity, and we've lost the pathway near the surf club there. And is there a bit of a time frame for re-establishing those infrastructures along the coastline? Because obviously it's a make-safe. My concern is, are they still safe? And secondly, improving and restoring back to where it was. So it's a physical infrastructure that's been damaged along that coastline.
Through the chair, yes. So we have, as part of the 7 sets of stairs going in, we have that make safe works that go along with that. So anywhere that we still have temporary fencing, we want that out as much as you do for that visual amenity and for that safety reason. We'd want to be replacing it with either proper dune fencing or access ways that are managing that pedestrian access to the beach appropriately. So we are getting those stairs in by Christmas. If there's any areas that we haven't identified yet that still have those safety fences, please let us know and we can add that to the program.
Yeah, so I'm referring to, obviously we've got the stairs, but there's a lot of those fences. If you look in front of surface, there's a few of those orange fencing that's been established along there, which I presume would be make safe at the time, which are starting to look a bit run down. Is there a time frame to hopefully, depending on the restoration of the beaches, replace?
Through the chair, that's exactly right. It's dependent on that restoration of the beach. So I know the fences you're talking about, there's some along the hard stand still, preventing access there. We don't have that beach volume in front of the hard stand in that location yet to create a accessible safe ramp for people to get onto. There was still scarping there. It was high priority to attend to the week after the school holidays, which was last week. I can check on the progress of that, but it's a high priority for us to reinstate that one.
I just suggest the team goes around and keeps their eye on those make-safe fencing. Councillor Gates.
Thank you. This is a funding question through you, if I might. I recognise that through the disaster recovery funding, there have been applications for funding assistance from the state and Commonwealth. But it seems really strange that we can't even build a beach club without state approval, because I assume we are the trustee of the beaches, even though the state actually owns them. But have there been conversations about the impact of not doing anything here? I mean, the report suggests that it's a $1.3 billion economic return that the beaches provide to the city. So for all this body of extra work that's not related to specifically the cyclone, but to ongoing protection of the northern beaches, have there been conversations with the state about sharing the cost?
Through the chair, certainly this has been communicated to the state. There is acknowledgement that a long-term solution is required at Narrowneck. I think the Premier has even publicly made statements about needing a longer-term solution at Narrowneck. As we progress this solution, and certainly when we get to Gate 2, which effectively show which option we think is the right solution, that will be when we have more direct engagement around potential cost sharing of design and delivery of the project.
Seems only fair that it doesn't fall all upon the ratepayer.
Agree.
Do we have any more questions? Thank you, Matt. I did fail to acknowledge Ross, Michael and Mark when we first started, so thank you for being here and thank you for your report.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Through the chair, just in further to the funding too, regarding the environmental funding component of the DRFA, which is the item 5, we are in constant consultation with QRA and DETSI, who will be administrating the environmental component of that fund. That particular fund is the one which is directly relevant to beach nourishment. So the dredging works, the backpassing works, all the work to protect the dunes. We are anticipating that will be eligible under the scheme. We're yet to receive the funding guidelines. I'm told they are close to being completed and released. Obviously, the Mayor's also been advocating for fast tracking of those particular guidelines. But I'm very hopeful that within the next week or two, we should finally have access to those guidelines and we can provide some clarity on what beach nourishment works will be eligible and which costs we can recover since early July when that funding arrangement was announced.
Councillor Gates.
It might not be something I can ask, but do we know what the costs were between the cyclone and July before we qualify for compensation?
Yes, we do have them. The exact number I'll probably take on notice.
Okay.
But it is a significant cost, but certainly most of our costs have been obviously through July through to November, where we're doing the major dredging components. So eligibility, at least across that period, will be highly beneficial. There is also a separate DRFA package, which I also understand will be announced, where some additional funding that's coming available for the emergent works type component, which is that sort of pre-July. So hopefully we'll be able to access some additional funding through that extension of the scheme and obviously significant recovery, hopefully, through the environmental program where our major costs will sit.
Fingers crossed.
I'm happy to move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tozer, seconder. I'll just open just quickly to say that the work that the team done has been quite phenomenal, considering it's only been within 8 months of the cyclone. We've had some challenging conditions moving forward during that period of weather events. There was many times we would have nice days, but we were having challenges out the back with the tides. Obviously, the northern beaches have been affected dramatically. Obviously, the whole beaches have it on the coastline, but to get most of our beaches back on line has been quite amazing by the team. I just believe that, as Councillor Gates said, it's important that state government do be heavily involved in this process moving forward, the recovery and also improvements moving forward. And I'd hope everyone supports this motion, and hopefully the team continues the great work that's done in such a short period of time. It does seem like it was only, it seems a long time ago, the cyclone, but it's been a very short period of time, and the team's done a great work. So thank you. Anyone want to talk to the motion? Anyone against? I'll put the motion to you. All in favour? Carry. Thank you. Master plan for Runaway Bay Sports Precinct. Chris, have we got a presenter? Chris? Ross, I think you're here as well. Thank you. When you're ready, Chris, thank you.
Thank you for having me here to present this report. My name is Chris Bolton. I'm the city's Specialist Community Infrastructure Planner. So this presentation involves 3 parts. First, a little about the site, Runaway Bay Sports Precinct, and why the master plan is needed. Next, I'll run through the master plan itself, so what is proposed, how it was determined, and who was involved. And then third, the implementation plan, where and when multiple projects should be delivered. So Runaway Bay Sports Precinct is one of the city's most significant sport and recreation parks. And to our knowledge, this is the first master plan proposed to support asset renewal. There are many assets that are needing renewal and upgrades to support the population growth and support the community in their preparation for Brisbane 2032 and beyond. So the need and urgency for this master plan is reflected in the city's LGIP, where, as you'll see, there are no less than 7 projects slated for the next 15 years. So Runaway Bay Sports Precinct is well serviced by the city road network. It's adjacent to Lay Drive on the south, Oxley Drive to the west, and Bayview Street to the east. The precinct is also quite large by park standards, at just over 65 hectares, comprising at least 9 lots, and in most part, it's been developed over a closed landfill, so it has ongoing environmental considerations that are very important. And since the landfill was closed in around the 80s, the sports facilities, as you see today, have been developed over time. So the site's also adjacent to the State Conservation Park of Pine Ridge Conservation Park to the north. Within the site is the Gold Coast Performance Centre, which is a state facility. There's also the Queensland Police Service and Queensland Ambulance stations for Runaway Bay nested within the site. And then to the south of the site, across Lay Drive, is Runaway Bay Shopping Centre, which is also significant. So Runaway Bay Sports Precinct supports a significant level of use. It is heavily used by clubs and groups with almost 100 regular users on top of the members of outdoor sports clubs. So from that graph you'll see that the capacity just of members of sports clubs is nearing capacity. But when you consider that there's almost 100 regular user groups that are above and beyond those sporting groups, clubs, sorry, there is an enormous diversity and quantity of users at this site. So as I've mentioned in the past, that there is a deficit of district sports park across the city. So like other parks we've been speaking about at Firth, for example, Runaway Bay Sports Precinct 2 is a city sports park, is also helped shouldering the load when you have a deficit of district sports parks. So all the more reason why it's so important to use these facilities to their optimised capacity. So the current use of facilities at Runaway Bay Sports Precinct includes sport and recreation, as I've mentioned, but it also includes community services and activities. So for all ages, abilities and interests, the site has 11 major buildings, half of which support sport and rec use and activities, mostly leased, as well as the city's facilities, the indoor centre, the youth centre, the community centre, the library and the SES depot. So there's a huge blend of sport, rec and community services and activities all congregating within this one precinct. So that means 11 buildings and more than 1,100 assets. So not having a master plan means that these assets and upgrades are being managed, on a case-by-case basis, kind of on their own, rather than thinking about how could we improve this site or, use the site to the best of its ability. So these facilities support everything that you can think of and maybe more, from music, rehearsals, line dancing, Zumba and yoga, to pickleball, football, skating, basketball, plus high performance training and competition. It really is every end of the spectrum. So providing fit-for-purpose sustainable facilities for all of these uses and more relies on an evidence-based master plan developed with these users. And that's exactly what we've done over the last year. Hang on.
Sorry.
The middle right, bottom right,
Bottom right.
the cricket. Oh, that's a raised seating platform.
A raised what, sorry?
Seating, like a spectating area
Oh, it just,
with some furniture on it
okay.
and a hedge.
Sorry,
Yes.
couldn't make it out.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I'm just getting.
Continue, thanks. Keep going, Chris. We'll continue. Keep going. I'll get everyone to start coming through the chair. There's a lot of chatter going around, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. And as I said, that's exactly what we've done over the last year. So the master plan that's proposed in the report is built from a vision for the next 20 years that is a thriving, flexible, future-proof sporting hub, supporting a diverse range of community activities, participation in multi-sports and high-performance training at inclusive and accessible indoor and outdoor facilities. So it is a vision that emulates current values and community use, but importantly, it prepares us for the future. And underpinning that vision are three principles that are really founded on the unique attributes of this site. Safety and functionality, so a safe and welcoming place with expansive, abundant and flexible green spaces and facilities. It's also built on a principle of environmental sustainability, a connected, coordinated and integrated community and sports precinct. And finally, a principle of integration, a precinct underpinned by best practice environmentally responsible land management. In developing the master plan, we undertook...
Sorry, Chris. Councillor Young, did you have a question?
Apologies.
I just wondered where that vision statement had come from. If that's arrived from the community consultation?
Yes, through the chair. It's been developed by the consultants and the project team, reflecting the sentiments from the community engagement.
Thanks. And so there's reference in the previous images to waterway and environmental assets, but they're not necessarily there, are they?
So that's correct. There's no waterways in Runaway Bay Sports Precinct, but it's the wetlands to the north that are important, and there's a lot of drainage that runs off this site into those wetlands. So,
thanks.
Yep. So yeah, as I mentioned, that there's been significant community engagement, and that really started with drawing from the insights from the community services and facilities review, because a lot of the current users were involved also in that related project. So that became our starting point to prepare a preliminary draft that was also founded on some focused engagement with the sporting clubs and groups that use the site. And that draft preliminary planning layout, which is what you see on the screen, was taken to the community in April for broad feedback. And we did receive a lot of feedback. Yeah, which is good. That's exactly what we were doing. We're in the business of getting feedback, and we absolutely got that. So we had many surveys completed online, lots of views of the draft master plan, and there was lots of feedback that we were on the right track, that generally there was support for the overall plan, particularly about improving sporting and recreation options and improving safety for pedestrians and cyclists. However, we didn't quite get it right when it came to the cycling circuit and the idea of breaking that circuit into a switchback to improve safety and prevent people from having to cross that circuit to use the fields in the middle of the circuit. So that and a few other issues, we went back to the plan and thought, okay, what can we do to address some of these things? So we came up with ideas about how to tweak the plan to hopefully satisfy some of the issues that were being presented. And then we went back to those key groups again with our ideas about how we could respond, and happy to report we found solutions that were good compromises to a very challenging puzzle of facilities, needs and use. So the final plan that you see on the screen, some things have not changed too much at all from what's there today. There are other things that hopefully we think are improvements to what's there, and then there are also those things that are quite different. So by that I mean what's the same. Junior Rugby League, for example, over on the eastern side there, their main fields are in the same location as their clubhouse is. But what's different is an expansion of the fields and provision of additional junior fields.
Councillor Tozer.
So two things. I was struggling to find where the 5 was, but I'm trying to get my head around this Luke Harrop cycle circuit. Does it go all the way around? Like there's a 5 over on the left-hand side of the site, and is it that road that kind of goes all the way around the middle? Does it do more than go past the park, or is it basically just around the soccer and multi-purpose fields?
Yeah, so through the chair, it is as it is now. So we abandoned the idea of changing it and kept it as it is.
And then instituted a pedestrian overpass.
And introduced 2 pedestrian overpasses, which, you know, either of these options are not cheap. We thought we'd go with the one that would be a more feasible option, but it didn't fly.
Okay.
So,
yeah, cool. My second question is, there's clearly some sort of sporting facility that is not inside the master plan. What is that? Like the chunk below the second column of legend.
Oh, so through the chair, that's the Gold Coast Sport and Leisure Centre. Gold Coast Performance Centre. The facility is run by the state government.
Oh, so that's the only state asset in the precinct?
Yes. Oh, no. There's also the ambulance and the police.
Right, which is
at the entry.
The 32 11 10 area is also nominally a state-owned asset.
Yes, so 32 is the ambulance and police. 32 is also police land. And 32 is also, the SES facilities.
Right.
So essentially, that precinct is not changing from what.
Yeah,
what
there isn't expected to be any integration between the elite sports development precinct area that's managed by the state and our master planned area.
So through the chair, we did engage with the performance centre staff all the way. They are doing their own master plan of that site. So we have tried hard to work together to find ways to improve that interface, and the plan does make suggestions about that. So realigning the cycle track as it comes out of the performance centre to support triathlons and triathlon training, for example, is one example. We've spoken to them about how we could change fencing and internal road and parking arrangements. They're just not quite there yet with their planning, but the conversation is positive, and we've done as much as we can do with this site and the plan. And over time, there'll be the chance to review and update this plan, as all master plans should be reviewed.
Yeah, cool. Do you mind if I ask a question? Yeah. So the area that is just below the state asset, which looks like a car park, it's got a number 10 on it. There's lots of 10s, but the car park that's closest to the number 10 underneath the state thing, does the state centre use that car parking to go in? Because it doesn't look like there's any car parking inside the state centre.
So through the chair, yes, there is parking inside.
In their centre?
It's just greyed out, so just north.
Just north of that car park that we've got inside our master plan.
Sorry.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trees above the number 10, what it looks like a car park just south of the state. Yeah, just there. So, that's their car park. Their car park is just to the north.
That's a big car.
Okay, so when you're going there, you go to theirs, but do you drive through our car park to get to that car park? Or is there a road that kind of connects to that? They've got their own entrance.
Mm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, cool. Thank you. That was my questions.
Okay. So sorry, I was also about to say that some things that were the same, which we've just talked about. There are those things that are improved. So in the bottom right corner where 23 and 24 are, you'll see that that's the BMX and pump track. So they're upgrades to what's there now. Similarly to the athletics over on the opposite side on the far right, improving the athletics and incorporating a throwing area. Again, that was part of a conversation with the Performance Centre. And then different is really a big shift is moving soccer from the eastern area where fields 36 are, in that general location, and the athletics, moving soccer to the western side of the precinct so that soccer and rugby league aren't competing for the same parking at the same time, can use more fields for their activities generally at the same times of the year. So that has been a major shift and quite a welcome shift from soccer's point of view. Another big shift has been introducing the idea of a combined clubhouse for cricket and racket sports, tennis and pickleball, and perhaps padel into the future. So 13 in the middle of the plan there shows one kind of triangular building. So ultimately, again, building on the directions of the community services and facilities plan, a lot more shared facilities with clubs co-located adjacent their respective infrastructure.
Question?
Councillor Taser.
How did the cricket club feel about racket sports becoming part of their club?
So through the chair, they'd still have their own clubs, but the clubhouse would be shared. I think it's fair to say that for these clubs, nobody was super excited about the prospect of sharing. Everyone likes having their own. However, most seem to acknowledge...
That's so diplomatic. That was the most diplomatic way to put it. Well done.
Most acknowledge and understand the complexities of this site. There is limited space. If everyone has a clubhouse, there's less facilities for playing sport. Yeah. So do you want more car parking and more clubhouses and less facilities? Or do you want to share and make the most of those, and then there's room to grow for everyone? So... as I said, if I haven't mentioned already, this was quite a puzzle, moving the pieces around without being able to push the boundaries in any direction to try and get more in there when it's already quite constrained. So, okay. So the benefits, in the report you'll see there's this table that really summarises what's there now versus what's proposed by the plan and how it differs. So I think the most important things to note are generally there's room to expand most facilities for particularly rugby league, athletics, definitely the racket sports and netball. Importantly, from a city's perspective and being more sustainable, the buildings were reduced from 11 to 7. So that is both club facilities and cities facilities. And then the pathways around the site potentially will be almost double what they are now. So really enhancing the informal recreational facilities at the site. And then also, as I mentioned before, splitting the winter sports so that there's not so much competition and congestion in one part of the site. Introducing a new clubhouse and additional facilities for cycling, who only have the track at the moment, upgrading the skate and pump tracks. And a big part of this is formalising car parking to really optimise the car parking on the site. So finally, the proposed master plan offers a roadmap for transitioning from the current facilities and services over the next 20 to 30 years. So this is a 20-year plan. However, the implementation with the size and the scale of facilities needed, I think the funding will probably need 20 to 30 years, given what's required. But the plan at least offers, these are the sequence and the scheduling of those works. And of course, as funding becomes available, and if there's more funding than we had anticipated, of course, it could happen sooner. But it importantly provides an evidence base for where and when upgrades should occur and when new infrastructure needs to be sequenced and scheduled. And the projects are sequenced to reflect the urgency when it comes to the asset condition, the facility improvements needed, lease arrangements and safety. And before any facilities are upgraded or enhanced, the next step is really a traffic and transport study. So while we've had our traffic team involved in the project working group for this project, what is abundantly clear is if we're going to formalise parking and introduce potentially additional entry and exit points, a transport and traffic study is essential. But until you have a master plan that shows, well, this is actually what we're trying to do and why we want to do things, you can't do that traffic study. So that's the very first step in phase 1, and then the next projects will be the pump track and BMX facilities, netball, potentially a junior criterium track and the indoor centre expansion, subject to Council's future budget provisions. Thank you.
Councillor Young.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for the presentation and all the work that's gone on behind it. I wonder if I could just ask about the Luke Harrop track, because it's obviously very popular. It's in the plan to be retained. Can you show me exactly the circuit, please? Is it?
So through the chair,
number 5 on the western side.
The reddy orange track. That's it.
So it's just around that oval.
And then the part that extends back the loop towards the performance centre.
And so where number 10 is, it's two-way.
Yes, because there's a gate into the performance centre which then facilitates the running on the running track and then the pool for the swimming component of triathlons. Second
question is about pedestrian overpasses. How many are there in this plan altogether, please? Two
proposed, both on the north and south on the eastern edge of an internal pathway around that track.
So ultimately there's going to be that traffic plan, and I know that we're just adopting this as a guide, we're endorsing this plan as a guide, but I mean, the pedestrian overpass, it's ideal, but they're expensive things, you know, there's $1 million just in those two bits of thing, I would imagine, and we have to be mindful of those aspects. But anyway, thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Councillor Martin?
Just a quick question on the sort of the catalyst for the master planning work. I think I was trying to look at the previous resolutions, but was it already identified or perhaps a councillor request?
So through the chair, good question, Councillor Martin. as we pointed out, there was a number of LGIP projects identified. We know there's a lot of growth in the north of the city. We anticipated that this site would become, more and more popular over time. That combined with basic general asset renewal. So, it's been there for 30 years, 40 years as a site. A lot of it's had haphazard, development over time, and a lot of the assets are becoming towards the end of life. So one of the first projects that we're kicking off will be the netball courts. That's really just driven by asset renewal more than anything. And so we're seeing this, sort of looking at the condition of all the assets in the precinct going, okay, we're going to have to be spending money here anyway. So this is really about, okay, if we're going to do that, we've got all these upgrades that we need to do as well. Let's do it in a coordinated fashion. So that's what the master plan sort of is for.
Just probably a comment off the back of that, Chair, if you'll allow. It's great to know, and you sort of answered my next question in that, this looks fantastic, but so far away. But if there's ways that we can sort of work towards it, like you touched on the netball courts, I think that's fantastic. And obviously thinking about other divisions as well, I think it looks fantastic.
Thank you. Councillor Gates.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Chris, I think you indicated there was 48% of people did not want to change to the Luke Harrop circuit. Was that correct? And I'm interested where those people came from. Were they members of that club, or was it put to everyone who uses this whole area? The overpasses are probably not achievable, if we're totally honest, because of the cost. So I'm just wondering how widespread that feeling was that there should be no change. I know it was 48% of what came back to you, but how widely explored was that, please?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Gates. So through the Chair, the feedback was there's multiple clubs that use that track, and so cyclists, that are pure cyclists, as well as the triathletes. And the feedback was from across the board of all those cycling groups, as well as a lot of informal cyclists. So for the 3 or 4 pop-ups that we had, the kiosks, it was the cyclists that were almost in the front row each time we kicked those off. So the issues were about if we broke the circuit and did a switchback in this corner, so you sort of came around, went round a roundabout, and then went back the way you came. The issues were the grade of going back up the hill over the current overpass was not seen to be feasible. It was also seen to be unsafe was the main concern. The speed of coming down that hill and then trying to slow up, go around a roundabout, and then go back up. On top of, if you have a two-way track, which it needs to be if you're doing a switchback, the safety issues again were the risk of colliding with an oncoming cyclist. So then we'd have to make the track actually wider. So there's just the land take and the feasibility of the grade with all the landfill underneath that. So really it became obvious that idea probably had merit in the absence of expertise from cyclists, but that's exactly what we got in the feedback. So that's why we thought, okay, well, we've tried. That would have been the more cost-effective option of having some pedestrian crossings at grade to get onto a path and, access all of those fields in the middle. But from the feedback from all the cycling community, not just cyclists, triathletes and everyone that was using it, it would really render the track useless for competitions and safe training.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to start by acknowledging Chris's dedicated and hard work throughout this process, and it's been a joy to be a part of. It is an incredibly complex puzzle, and you've done such an amazing job of bringing all the clubs along on this journey. And I think it's a really good demonstration of what really effective consultation looks like, because all of the issues that were raised in the initial draft are the things that were eventually amended, and I think it speaks volumes to a very a responsive council that does listen to the community, and I can't wait to show them the the new draft and to communicate that their thoughts and their concerns were listened to, and we can see that in the one that's on the screen at the moment. So I'm very, very comfortable with it as the divisional councillor, but of course it's really hard. There's parts of it that required compromise, and so I did let a couple of the clubs know that reached out that I would ask questions to have a couple of things on the record, and one of them is from the Gold Coast Regional Tennis Centre. And I know in the report that it says that Queensland Tennis has a strategic plan 2028 that identified Runaway Bay as an expansion site for a regional hub. However, we've prioritised it in the beyond 10 years phase because obviously we're balancing all of the needs of different sports across that site. I just wanted to provide some reassurance to them that obviously my understanding is if there was state and federal money that came earlier, because that's a site that doesn't require the moving of another club as the first step, we could look to change it if funding eventuated from different sources and it became more cost effective to bring it forward. Am I correct in that understanding?
So, yeah, through the chair, it would also depend on cricket being satisfied that timing suited them and their facilities, because it would mean demolishing their facilities to make all of that happen in that precinct. So,
while we're on the cricket club, and to answer, I think it was Councillor Tozer's question, yes, cricket wasn't thrilled with the prospect of having to share. Again, I'm very supportive of where we've landed. We've had previous resolutions from this council that we want to see consolidation where it's available and to have those cost efficiencies in our network, and they're just a necessity when you've got pressures on availability of land. So I'm supportive of it. But certainly if a future council changed that position, it was within the footprint allocated to cricket. Is there anything in this master plan that would stop that from eventuating if a future council decided that they wanted cricket to retain their own and cricket was able to get funding to deliver that, or the master plan would not allow for any flexibility moving forward?
So through the chair, of course there's flexibility in a master plan. It's a high level document that's, imperfect, but it's evidence based at a point in time, and things change, and we will likely, with all these master plans that we've recently taken the opportunity to develop, review them every 5 years, 10 years to sort of tweak and make sure they're relevant to the day. Who knows whether cricket comes up with a package of money to do their own endeavour that doesn't compromise the overarching endeavours of the racket club or the tennis club. That could certainly be looked at that point in time. Yep.
Thank you for that response. And just on that one too, Chair, so we had some discussions that we've planned for the optimum amount of car parking on the site, but that's going to be pending a traffic network plan, and we might come out that we can't provide that much parking because the local network can't support it. Cricket raised a bit of a concern of being separated between their fields. Would it be anticipated that might be the section where we lose car parking from to allow for a greater connection between the cricket fields? I appreciate I'm going into the minutiae, but just to give comfort to the cricket club, that could be a future outcome.
As funding becomes available, we would obviously bring on the car parking that is closest to the existing car parking, and that northern section of 14 would come at the end if we didn't have enough funding to deliver the entirety of that entire car park. We would do a portion of it, and so retain that connection for as long as possible. But I would say that we can certainly design in adequate walkways and safe crossing through a car park to alleviate those concerns as well.
Thank you, Chair. And my final question, just with the phasing that was presented on the screen versus what was in the consultant's report, it spoke to lighting upgrades, and just acknowledging that that's sort of where we can get the greatest and quickest expansion in our use at that site. When will Council see the next steps of how we can progress moving that item forward?
So through the chair, was that question pertaining to lighting renewals or upgrades?
New lighting that would allow the utilisation of the western site.
So through the chair, it's my understanding that those phases are in phase 2 or phase 3 of the master plan. The funding that we have or identified in the draft for in the draft 4 years is really focused on the pump track and the renewal of the netball courts and obviously the lighting within the netball courts. There will be normal asset renewal of lighting within the precinct, but any upgrades will come beyond the 4 currently. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm not a member of the committee, but I'd be excited to move it if I were.
I was going to ask you if you want to move it, and then I realised you weren't on the committee. So, your question, Councillor?
Yeah, just a question. Thanks, just through the chair. I'm not sure whether this revised plan has gone back to some of the stakeholders. Did you say that it has, or because I thought I heard Councillor Curtis say that she was yet to present it to the clubs? So just wanted to get some sort of understanding.
Thanks, Councillor O'Neill. Yes, we met with about 8 groups that were most affected by having to change from the draft version. So the likes of soccer, when it was not feasible. We thought about putting them over to the west. We met with them and said, how does this sound? So yes, about 8 different groups, but not the broader community.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? I'm happy to move it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tozer. Anyone want to speak for motion? Support. Okay. Anyone want to speak against? No? I'll hand it over to Councillor Curtis. Would you like to close my behalf?
Thank you, Chair, and just to acknowledge that this master plan is the result of many, many months' work and hundreds of hours of consultation with the affected clubs, and it's been very responsive to the feedback, and I am certain the community is going to welcome the opportunity for further investment in their favourite sporting infrastructure location in Division 4, and I thank the officers very much for their work.
Thank you. I'll put the motion to. All in favour? Carry. So we're now going to 7.1 Seawall completion strategy. It will be in close. So we will go into, can I have someone to move to go into close for legal advice obtaining by local government or legal proceedings involving the local government, for example, legal proceedings that may have taken or against the local government. Councillor Gates, second, Councillor Taylor, all in favour? Carry. So we'll go into close. So welcome back. We've had a strong discussion about the Seawall completion strategy, which is a strong topic right now in relation to the beach profiling discussion we had early in the day. And as the city grows, we obviously want to protect our coastline. We've got 2 levels of protection, which is our build-up of sand, and obviously our final protection is our A-line or seawall, as a lot of people know it. We have a recommendation up there moved by Councillor Gates. We have a seconded by Councillor Young. Couple. Did you want to open?
Yeah, just briefly, I'll say that I think Cyclone Alfred and the ongoing restoration works that are underway to rectify the damage have highlighted the criticality of completion of the seawall. And this today will provide the framework for us to review the current position, the funding moving forward, and what needs to happen where some of the walls are in private ownership, with a further report to come back to Council for consideration. So I think we all support the protection of our beaches and private and public property, and this is a way forward to ensure we do our best in that endeavour.
Thank you. Do I have anyone want to speak against the motion? Does anyone want to speak to the motion? Do you want to close? That's your close. We'll put the motion to you. All in favour? Against? Carry. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Daniel. We now have general business. Do we have any general business? There's nothing I'm aware of. So we will close the meeting at 15:23. Thank you, everyone.